Long ball number one here on Morning Kicker, and I'm Robert. He's Jason. Welcome in. We are on the eve of two international tournaments. The Gold Cup and the Club World Cup both start tomorrow. Miami versus LLE in the Club World Cup, and Mexico versus the Dominican Republic in the Gold Cup. Where are we at? How you feeling? There is a lot of soccer to come. 63 games in the Club World Cup running all the way until the 13th of July. 16 teams in the Gold Cup, with the final of that competition ending on the 6th of July.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting summer of soccer, to say that, to kind of undersell it a bit. I guess I'm not sure I'm overly excited for either one of these tournaments. I would rather have one big tournament than two kind of crappy tournaments.
We're definitely at a quantity, at least from this. Like we're on the edge. We're on the ledge of these tournaments, looking out into the canyon of soccer ahead in the summer. I feel like we're in a quantity over quality sort of a scenario. We talked a little bit about it off air. Like we have the World Cup next summer, and I think the Club World Cup might be adding some confusion and kind of draining that like hyper spotlight that is the Club World or the World Cup in 2026. Do you maybe when we see the games, maybe we'll change our minds. Maybe there's some enthralling matchups or some sort of unique circumstances that come about. But I feel like it is distracting from next year.
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all because nobody's thinking about next year yet. No, America, meaning, okay, look, you and I, people in the soccer bubble, all of our incredible supporters and MK Ultra, shout out to Angus, who's here this morning. I feel indifferent about all of these midsummer tournaments. Angus and I are on the same wavelength. America is not even aware a World Cup is coming. It's not. I mean, I'm saying that in a very general sense, but if you think about, the soccer community, we've all been building to this. And when we get to a couple months out from the World Cup, there will kick in a hype machine and people will be talking about it. And it will make the conversation on various sports talk radio shows and on television and the debate shows and all this. Probably it's going to be, Skip Bayless across the way from some other guy arguing whether the World Cup matters, which is going to piss me off. But we're not there yet. None of those people who can actually drive the major mainstream conversation are talking about the World Cup yet. I mean, the Pulisic thing, which we're going to get to on today's show, and the little bit of back and forth that's around his decision not to play this summer in the Gold Cup, that will kind of make its way in a little bit. I do think the Club World Cup is getting in. I saw Le Batard was talking about the Club World Cup, but not because it's soccer and look at all the big teams, but because we know that ICE and CBP are going to be out doing security at games. And one has to wonder, as I've also seen news that a boat was pulled over by the Coast Guard that had like the mayor of Miami-Dade County on it, and they were checking citizenship papers. I mean, none of that is like encouraging for the excitement around these tournaments. It's chilling my own excitement as a politically aware person. And as a soccer person, I can't get myself yet to that. Like, it's going to be interesting and fascinating. I'm going to want to watch some of these games. I don't know. And obviously with the U.S. men's national team, Rob, in the Gold Cup, that's enthusiasm has waned because of the way that team looked in their last friendly and with the roster missing so many big players.
With these tournaments, and really the story about the mayor and the Telemundo executives being pulled over in the boat, that really shows where we are just in general in the country and where we are with these tournaments starting tomorrow, of the reality versus the commercial presentation. Yeah. Like
I would say, that's the issue. I'm going to address Andy. I'm sorry. I'm going to address Andy. He said, does mainstream radio and television still exist? Honest question. And it's a reasonable thing to ask. Right, it's a reasonable thing to ask, and I bring up Le Batard, and I bring and you can talk about Colin Cowherd, and I think Pat McAfee, and not just as three examples of this, while we are fractured more than ever, and we are doing this show because we are trying to bring something to soccer fans who can't find this kind of conversation anywhere else. Right, if we didn't think there was a marketplace, or people weren't choosing and had the ability now with YouTube and podcasts and everything else to choose what they consume, we wouldn't be doing this show because there'd be no hope of actually capturing an audience. Everybody would be listening to the same 3 radio shows or watching the same 3 television shows. And so, yeah, mainstream radio and television has changed, but I still think there's a sense that, someone like McAfee can drive a conversation that goes even beyond his particular reach. He's a massive show, especially by modern standards, but people who don't even watch McAfee will talk about what McAfee covers because it breaks out from his little bubble. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, that's true. And you bring up another point about McAfee and the TST and how that didn't seem like it had as much heat on it, even though there was an ESPN desk of the McAfee show at the tournament. There is another tournament that kind of unnaturally made prize money and basically I don't know, what would you call that? The TST is an amateur team can win $1 million. But what do we have starting tomorrow? We literally have the same thing, but just on a gargantuan scale. It's like, come here and win $1 billion. And so just the scale of that maybe got outmatched. But back to the point of the mainstream, while it doesn't exist in the same way it did maybe 10, 20 years ago, there are still louder voices from that era that still dominate the conversation, or just even like places like ESPN FC, like people still regularly check in on those. Those get huge numbers. So that's the sort of thing we're talking about penetrating to a degree.
I mean, relatively speaking, huge numbers, I guess. I don't know. I guess so if we're talking about these 2 tournaments and sort of how excited, I can't tell you how excited to be for either one of these tournaments. That's up to you. If you're a U.S. men's national team fan, I won't be mad at you if you're like, I'm not really whatever. I'm not really interested in this. Look at what just happened. The story is now more about who's not there than it is about who is there. That obviously depresses interest. And look, if you're a Mexico fan, maybe even Mexican fans will be like, well, is this really that big of a deal? The U.S. isn't as good as they could be. Maybe we beat Panama, and I think Coca Garcia is going to miss this tournament. So that's a big blow for Panama. Like the sense that it's a major tournament, the Gold Cup, is completely out the window and probably was even before.
Yeah, I was going to say, was there ever a year where it was the pinnacle?
And then, of course, the Club World Cup is still a mystery. It's an unknown quantity. And when we get to the Fab Four, we're going to point to some games and we'll pick out a Club World Cup game because we are going to get a sense for at least 2 teams of how seriously they're going to take this thing from the outset. I don't mean if they make the semifinal. I mean from the outset, because if this was a World Cup, the tournament we all center our soccer lives around, or many of us do, there would be no question that you play your strongest team in your first group stage match. We honestly don't know if that's happening, although I think maybe the matchup is going to dictate some of that. But so that because we just don't know what this Club World Cup is going to deliver, and because there's been so many bad headlines around it off the field, it makes it tough to get excited.
It sure does. And just another side note from a different perspective overseas, from the English perspective, I did notice that one of the biggest voices, Gary Lineker and Micah Richards, they have a podcast over there, and I think they got commissioned to cover it like yesterday, and they just put out a first episode, and they were like, what the hell is this thing? And so if voices like that are clearly like guns for hire to cover it, like that's pretty thin. So like you said, we shall see. Big voices will address it if they have the rights or some sort of partnership. But
there's a very good chance, based on what we know about ticket sales, that this is going to become, look at how nobody's going to the Club World Cup. And there will be 2 different approaches. One of them will be, this is a joke of a tournament. Why the hell are they doing this? Nobody cares. And the other side will be, well, Americans don't care about soccer, or Americans aren't showing up for these. And again, maybe there will be, we don't blame them, or it could be, let's all point and laugh at the Americans who play other sports for some reason.
A random prediction after, like, if there's like a week of bad attendances, someone throws out in the media, America shouldn't have the World Cup anymore.
Prediction. That's already going to happen because of other things. Again, political questions. But yes, absolutely. If it's, and that's very thin evidence that the United States should not have the World Cup if nobody shows up to the weird, pulled out of thin air, created from nothing 48 team or whatever with
cash injected.
How many teams are in this Club World Cup again?
So Club World Cup has 32 teams and 63
32 teams. 32 teams. Yeah. All right.